The commodity trap. So this is one of the most common traps that us as creators fall into. It's positioning ourselves as a commodity. And then what we end up hearing is, mate, you're way too expensive. I can get this in India for half the price, a quarter of the price. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard this. It is incredibly frustrating because you know that your work is valuable. And one of the worst things that can possibly happen when you fall into the commodity trap is to believe that your work is less valuable than it is. When that happens, there's a tendency to end up devaluing your work and doing stuff for cheaper, which ends up actually ruining the work that you end up taking because you can't do favors for your clients. You have to be very stringent on budgets. And then clients just get pissed off. You get pissed off. You resent the client resents you, and you end up going into hectic conflict. I promise you now, when you take on the clients that try and haggle you down to the lowest cent, those are the most frustrating and annoying clients to work with. Let that sink in for a moment. The clients who pay you the least are the most annoying to work with. And I've agreed to jobs at every level of the spectrum. I've even agreed to do jobs for free in exchange for, something else, not sexual favors, but other things, things like accommodation, for example. And I end up resenting them all the time because, man, I need to eat. I've got to provide for my family. I've got to put food on the table. So stop devaluing yourself. Stop undervaluing yourself, first and foremost. But one of the most frustrating things that I started to notice was after COVID, when I was having all of this awesome success, was that things started to change. Firstly, clients' budgets got a bit weaker. Clients started being more controlled about what they were spending. They started to look for solutions offshore. Even I did that. I tried to look for editors in India because my clients were paying me less, so I had to get cheaper editors. So it all sort of knocked on. It was a knock-on effect. And it was a terrible experience because the level of skill was just completely switched off. And I actually ended up having to do more work in the long run. So what I realized was when I was presenting and pitching my work and going through the pitching process and presenting new ideas, presenting my offers to clients, it came down to one thing. It came down to the measurement of value. It came down to the way that I was presenting my prices to people. So when you sell based on value, price becomes irrelevant. When you sell based on price, value becomes irrelevant. So what that means is when you sell based on the value of what they're going to get as a result, how it's going to transform their business, then the price to them, it becomes worth it. But when you sell based on the price, so you tell them, hey guys, this is the price we're doing. It's a really great price in the markets. The value becomes irrelevant and all they want to do is try and drive you down as low as possible. And they just see you as a commodity. You've fallen in to the commodity trap. So what you need to do is create context for your clients. You need to create context for the people and the prospects that you're posing to work with. This is the psychology of pricing. And I had to learn this the hard way, again, by having amazingly huge budget jobs get signed off and then all the way down to fighting for absolute scraps. The transformation between getting jobs agreed and getting jobs denied is the context that you apply to the situation. This is based in human psychology. Vision creates context. Value creates context. Fear creates context. So what does that mean? The way vision creates context. What is the upside worth to you in the future? So as a client, in order for you to know this, you need to have taken them through the process right at the beginning when you did the first briefing call. You need to understand what their desires are and what their biggest goal that they are working towards is. And if you can connect your service to their biggest goal and their highest desire, your job and your value is going to be positioned according to that and not the price. So you want to anchor your price to their goal and their dream rather than how much money your service costs. Now, of course, the service you're delivering has to actually help that. You can't say, yeah, I'm going to design you a logo and it's going to help you make $1 million because it ain't. But what you can do is find ways to connect your service to their goal. All right. It might be a stepping stone. It might be the whole bridge to that goal. It might just be one little step. But as long as you can provide enough value to show them that this is how it works, you're going to be able to position yourself in a way better way. Now, the next graph that I'm going to show is exactly how to create that value and to show you the different services, the different levels of service that you can offer, but essentially understanding that vision creates context, value creates context. So what is the independent cost of each item that you're offering? So when we would put creative budgets together, we would break it down into pre-production, production, post-production, and then under each one, we would list the people that were involved in that step, and we would put a price tag on them. So they knew exactly what the value was going into the whole production job. And so when we tallied that up and totaled that up, it made sense for people. But if you just present £25,000, that's how much money it is. They go, bro, what is included in that? They don't understand they're not professionals at this. They don't know what goes into a budget. So even at the lower end of the spectrum, if you're an editor, a video editor, or a graphic designer, break out the value of each item. They will see, wow, I'm getting all of this. I'm getting this whole team. I'm getting all of these deliverables for this price. So fear creates context. This is where you want to show and explain what the cost of doing it wrong is. Now, I remember I was presenting an offer and a proposal to a client for a social media job that I was doing. And I remember showing them the price, which was, I think it was £17,000. And when I showed it to these guys, they absolutely crapped themselves. So I didn't do the value-based context. I didn't show them vision-based context. I just showed them what it would cost. And I didn't even do fear-based context. So I didn't show them the cost of doing it wrong. Now, that was a vital mistake for me because these guys just looked at the price and they laughed. They literally said, mate, are you insane? Are you nuts? And because I was a bit more inexperienced there, I just was like, mate, this is what it costs. And I was actually just left a bit speechless. And the guy who I was presenting to, I remember him being quite nasty and saying, do you think you are able to charge some of the top biggest branding agencies in the world? Like, who do you think you are? So he got quite nasty. And I wish I had these tools in my repertoire because I could have said, dude, what is the cost of you paying less for this? I can imagine if you pay just a random person to go out there and do this, you're probably going to have to end up shooting this again and paying more than what I actually proposed to you in the first place. What happens if I gave them vision-based pricing? I say, look, this is what I'm going to help you achieve. You're going to get X amount of return on investment. What if I showed them all of the value that was actually included in the offer? Perhaps their response to me would have been different. Now, something that was quite funny was when I reached out to them a couple of months later, I said, how did the shoot go? And they told me, it was, a massive learning experience. And I actually checked. They didn't end up releasing any new content. And my assumption is that they ended up wasting a bunch of money, paying someone on the cheap, because I was not able to convince them then and there. I was not able to give them context to what I was offering. If I could have given context in that moment, if I could have said the cost of doing this wrong, trust me, if you pay an amateur to do this, you're going to end up having to do it again. So fear is a great way to create context where you can explain the cost of doing things wrong to people. As a creative, we have a decision on how to price our work. Okay. And pricing your work is a very difficult process. Now, I remember doing a job for a client. It was for a massive party, and this client had been nailing me on price, multiple jobs. And they finally had this huge party that they were going to be throwing, and they wanted me to film it, my team to film it. And I thought, unfortunately, without knowing that they had a massive budget, I actually priced this on the lower end of the scale, the lower end of the spectrum, because I expected that from this client now. I didn't want to overcharge them. And then I remember telling them the price. I remember the client screaming down the phone saying, oh my God, thank you so much. We thought this was going to be so much more than this. We actually had so much more budget. But Luke, thank you for being so kind to us. Thank you so much for budgeting it so low for us. We really appreciate it. Boom, I put the phone down and I just went, oh my gosh, why did I underprice myself again? knowing that I probably could have doubled the budget. And, anyway, this is where you need to understand the creative services spectrum. All right. So when you're positioning your work, when you're positioning everything you do for your client, you will be able to charge more or less based on the bracket that it lives under. So there are three main brackets that creative services actually support clients for in any given industry. Now, there might be more, but this is what I've simplified it down into for ease and also just for our sanity. So the three buckets are: it either makes your client money, it elevates your client's status, or it saves your client time. Now, depending where it is along the spectrum, the more or less you will be able to charge for your services. So if you can see on the spectrum here, starting down right at the bottom, things like illustration, graphic design, editing, videography, photography, social media management, all of these things save your client time. And this was one of the biggest problems I faced as someone who was a videographer. I was like, look, we're doing this whole production, we're doing all of this, but because I was latching my outcome just onto a simple, we're executing the brief for you, and I didn't latch my price onto a dream outcome such as making money or elevating status, I was just doing it based on, guys, this is going to save you so much time hiring me. I actually was shooting myself in the foot because I wasn't able to charge much more. So these things essentially save your client time, but they can also be pushed up into higher brackets if you position your services as advertising or digital marketing or creative consulting or brand strategy. Now, the middle ground to this is elevate status. So things such as custom business animations, interior design, content creation, public relations, workshops and training, web design, brand design, content marketing. So you see there's a very, very subtle nuance here where a videographer could easily be a content marketer. But the videographer is just thinking, oh, I'm a technician. I'm just going to go out there. I'm going to press record and do what they tell me to do. But yes, of course, you're only ever going to be able to charge a day rate if that's what you're doing. But if you want to charge more, you need to step into the realm of content marketing. You need to step into the realm of content creation. How can you create for your client on a monthly basis? How can you position your work to elevate their status as opposed to just save them time? Because anyone can save a client time. There's thousands of videographers and editors out there. Thousands. But the reason they're going to choose you over those other people is because you are helping them elevate their status or make them money. If you're just going to save them time, that's what everyone else is doing. So if you want to raise up your level, raise up your position, elevate the way that you communicate your offer. Now, again, a graphic designer could easily be a content creator. A graphic designer could easily be a web designer or a brand designer. But the level to which they're positioning themselves, as opposed to just being a generalist graphic designer, if you are a content marketer, you can charge more for your services because you're helping your clients elevate their status. Now, the next level up from this is you can actually make your client money. Can you make your client money? And if you are just a technician, maybe you can't. And then you need to go through the process of developing more skills. But as a videographer at heart, someone who could just make videos, I knew that just creating a video for a client wasn't the be all and end all. They wanted that video for a very specific reason. They wanted that video so they could sell more products. They wanted that video as a form of advertising and marketing. So rather than me positioning and marketing myself as a videographer, I started marketing myself as a digital marketer. So when I would speak to clients, I'll be like, yeah, I'm going to help you with your digital marketing. I'm going to create videos that are going to fit into your advertising campaigns. I'm going to give you strategy on how to create better creative to hook people's attention, to improve your conversions, to improve your click-through rates on your advertising. And then I was able to charge way higher retainers and way higher jobs and actually get a better foot in the door with these clients because I was stepping away from being a commodity service to being an essential service. And the difference between an essential service and a commodity service is a commodity saves people time and an essential service makes people money. And if you can position your services more along this line, you will make more money as a result of it. Now, again, making money ain't everything. It ain't everything. And sometimes there's place for just videography and editing. I sometimes still do editing jobs today because it's a good way for me to just have a little bit of income come through. If I need some cash through the door fast, I know that I can pick up an editing job like that. All right. So your skills are always your skills, and that should actually empower you because you can go out and take risks. If they fail, you can always fall back on the skills that you have. Because as creatives, we are highly skilled, highly sought after people, but it just depends on the way you position your service to other people will enable you to charge more or less and step away from the commodity trap and actually step away from the fear of being labeled too expensive all the time. All right. Now, that's creative services. Now, one cool thing I just want to touch on is creative product creation. Now, for me, this took me a long time to get my head around, but as someone who was living in London for his whole life and working out of a small kitchen and hopping from cafe to cafe running my business, I always knew that I wanted to move away. I didn't want to live in London all the time. I wanted to be geographically free. So what I knew I had to do was detach myself from having to be on set all the time and having to actually be in a physical location to get paid. And so what I had to do was to digitize my offering and digitize my service. So I want to introduce you to a model called DARES. So this is all about digital, automated, recurring, evergreen, and scalable income. Now, it's very, very difficult to get all of these things incorporated. And your aim is, when you're creating products, is to get as many of these in as possible. So one of the most common and one of the most popular businesses that actually leverages the DARES model is Netflix. So it's digital, it's automated, it's a recurring payment. It's not that evergreen because they have to update and film films all the time, but it is scalable. So as a business owner, if you want to go online, if you want to start creating extra income online, you need to try and get as many of these points in as possible. So it might be a digital service. It might be a digital product that is automated so you can sell it on autopilot. It might be a subscription service, so it's a recurring fee. And then it is scalable because it doesn't need you to physically be there and do all of the work to execute it. So my favorite way of this, and the way that I was able to create a digital product and move out of London and move to Bali, where I live now, was by creating online courses. My first ever course was an online course teaching people how to create videos because that's what I knew how to do. That was my skill. As a creative professional, you have a very specialized set of skills, and those skills can be turned into a video course or a set of templates or a digital product that can be sold online that matches the DARES model as closely as possible. Because if we take any of the services that we spoke about previously, barely any of them fit the DARES model. You're likely to get like one of them on there. It might be recurring, for example, for a retainer, or it might be digital. Some agency services are scalable, but generally it's quite difficult to scale. It really matches 2 or 3 of those at best. So going into something like creating creative products is a great way to diversify your income and then also step out of the commodity trap, step out of being reliant on your client work. Because when you step away from being reliant on the next job, it brings so much freedom to your negotiation, because if the job doesn't fit your values, it doesn't fit you, you're not going to just take it because of the money, because you have your other income, you have your products making money for you. So around this, we have a bunch of suggestions and just differentiations of different products that you can create. But I recommend that all creatives start thinking about how to create a product that can be as close to the DARES model as possible. Because if you can do that and you can start making extra income through that, you will have more space and freedom to create and to work on projects that you really desire and you really love. And so you can take less of those crappy clients on and those jobs which just absolutely bring you no joy. All right? That's what's possible. Now, I'll leave you on this. Whenever you're thinking about a price and you're struggling to put a dollar amount on it, charge what makes you feel good. Just try it. Don't think about it too much. Charge what makes you feel good And that's generally going to be a sweet spot for you to actually charge. One of the hardest things for me was, oh my God, am I charging too low? Am I charging too high? But whenever you find equilibrium, whenever you find harmony in the price that you've actually got on, as long as it covers your costs, it makes you profit, then charge what makes you feel good. All right. Generally with creative services, looking beyond 20%, 40% is really going to be a great amount of profit that you want to get in there. But when you're creating digital products, the profit margins go up to 75%, 90%. So charge what makes you feel good. Once the sale is made, that is only the start and the beginning of your client's journey. Great creatives aim to blow their clients away with professional, structured fulfillment. This ensures repeat business and avoids unnecessary conflict. One of the biggest mistakes I see creatives make, and one of the biggest mistakes I've made in my life, when the clients came on board, I let the whole job down because I had a terrible onboarding process. And the amount of structure that you give to your clients will give them a certain degree of safety and they'll feel good in your hands. If you could make sure that every client came on board with you, became a repeat client, how amazing would your life be? You wouldn't have to go scrambling for new clients all the time. You'd have great retainers on deck. What we're going to be covering in the next video is exactly the onboarding process that you need to ensure that you have repeat business. What happens after the sale is the second most important step, right after executing the brief. So watch part 3 now for the 5-star service process and how you can implement that immediately. I'll see you there.